1979. Russia. A 13-year-old boy was getting married, but the strange part wasn't just his age, it was his bride. Her name was Natasha. She was 11 years old and she was dead. The ceremony was strange and silent. A ring was placed on the boy's finger, then onto the corpses. A fruit basket was handed to him afterward, and the ceremony was over. Years later, that same boy grew up and had children of his own. He sang to them at night, watched cartoons with them, gave them gifts. He called them his daughters, but none of them were alive. They were the preserved bodies of dead girls, dressed like dolls and kept in his bedroom. That man is Anatoly Moskvin, a scholar of cemeteries, a linguist, and a man with a secret life built around the dead. He didn't kill anyone, but he stole over 26 corpses from their graves to care for them. At least, that's what he told himself. What drives a person to cross that line? Madness, fantasy, or something much darker? Or maybe it's just loneliness. Let's take a journey through the mind of Anatoly Moskvin. Anatoly Moskvin was born in 1966 in Gorky, Russia. He was the kind of kid teachers remembered for all the right reasons. He was a quiet, brilliant, and polite student. He spent most of his childhood reading while other kids played. Anatoly was a prodigy, but a lonely one. He didn't have many friends and spent most of his days in isolation, but that didn't stop him from doing what he loved. At 12 years old, his childhood stopped in a tragic way when he was walking home one day and an unknown man brutally assaulted him. No adult came to the rescue that day. What's terrifying about that trauma at that age isn't just the act itself, it's what it teaches you about people. For Anatoly, the lesson was simple: adults cannot be trusted. And just as that wound began to scar, something else happened. A year later, he found himself standing near a cemetery, watching from a distance as a group of adults prepared to bury a young girl. She had died at just 11 years old. He didn't know her. He didn't know why he was even there. It was curiosity that pulled him toward the scene. Then, without warning, a man from the crowd grabbed him. He was forced to come closer to the coffin. The man told him to kiss the dead girl, and Anatoly, frozen and confused, obeyed. That should have been the end of it, but then the girl's dead mother stepped forward, and instead of stopping what was happening, she placed a ring on Anatoly's finger, then slipped another one onto the dead girl's hand. At that moment, they performed a green wedding ceremony, and Anatoly was married to a dead girl. He didn't cry, he didn't scream, he just stood there, not understanding what was taking place. Afterward, the mother handed him a fruit basket with some money and warned him to never tell anyone. That day, something in Anatoly broke. Whatever trust he had in adults was gone. After the strange wedding, Anatoly's childhood faded into a pattern of isolation. It was like he disappeared into himself, and the outside world became background noise. At night, Natasha would visit him in his dreams. She kept offering to teach him dark magic. At first, he refused. She kept returning night after night. Eventually, she made him an offer. She would leave him alone, but only if he performed a ritual for her. He agreed, and when he did it, the nightmares stopped. The silence returned, but something in him didn't go back to how it was before. That's when he started to romanticize the dead. Between the moment he was married to that corpse and the day he stepped onto a university campus, loneliness raised him. By the time Anatoly reached university, he chose to pursue philology, the study of language through its history and literature. He was especially drawn to the Celtic history in that field. For Anatoly, studying Celtic history became a portal to studying the dead. When he finished university, Anatoly didn't chase money or comfort. He worked for a local magazine that specialized in obituaries. On an assignment to write an article, he visited 752 cemeteries across Western Russia. It took him almost 2 years. He recorded names, dates, headstone styles, every single detail. He didn't have money, so he slept outside and ate whatever he could find. Once, he even slept in an empty coffin to stay warm. In one of his notes, he wrote about nearly dying from the cold, but he still finished documenting every grave before leaving. This wasn't just work anymore for him. It had become his life. Graveyards were the one place that felt predictable, quiet, safe. The dead didn't judge, didn't abandon, didn't betray, and most importantly, didn't force. But even the quiet of cemeteries couldn't feel the silence inside him. What he really longed for was something he had never had: children of his own. Anatoly never married dated. He remained a virgin his entire life, and perhaps in his mind, there was a reason for that. Maybe, deep down, he still believed he was married to Natasha, the dead girl he was forced to marry when he was 13 years old. But even with that imagined bond, he still dreamed of having children. He tried to adopt several times, but he had no steady income, so the agencies turned him down. That's when everything changed. If no one would let him be a father, he decided he would make a way to become one. During his time visiting 752 cemeteries, Anatoly didn't just record names on headstones. He actually spoke to the dead, or at least, that's what he thought. Night after night, he would lie on their graves, try to connect, but the cold earth pressed hard against his body, causing physical pain he could no longer bear. So, he made a choice. Instead of lying beside them, he would bring them closer. He began digging up graves. The bodies he chose were always girls ranging from 3 to 29 years old. But Anatoly didn't simply steal them. He preserved them, carefully wrapped them, mummified them using a special mix of salt, baking soda, and herbs he had researched. Then, he dressed them like dolls, painted their faces, gave them names, and treated them like family. He spoke to them, sang to them, even watched cartoons with them, creating a strange and fragile world where loneliness couldn't reach him. They weren't corpses to him, they were his daughters. Now, Anatoly's mind was not easy to understand. Most people would find his actions very strange and very disrespectful, but for Anatoly, this was how he coped. The adults who should have protected him when he was young were only out to hurt him. He believed this was the only kind of love he thought he could have without getting hurt again. But reality has a way of breaking through even the most fragile fantasies. It wasn't long before the families of the girls started to notice their graves had been disturbed. Since the area was Muslim populated, the authorities thought it was a hate crime against Muslims, so the police sent their best team to investigate. But weeks passed and nothing made sense. They couldn't find who was behind it, and the case went cold. Then, a terrorist attack happened at a nearby airport. It brought fear all over again. The police decided to take a second look at the graves, just in case. That's when they got lucky. Officers caught Anatoly vandalizing a grave. At first, they thought he was defacing graves, but when they searched his apartment, that's when they found what looked like life-size dolls, preserved bodies of young girls. He was charged with multiple crimes, but during trial, psychiatrists declared him unfit to stand. The court ruled that Anatoly Moskvin suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, so instead of a prison, he was sent to a psychiatric facility. He's been there ever since.